like to call this ag meeting to order.
Ready for the roll?
Yep.
Lee,
Here.
Powell,
Here.
Barstow.
Here. Let's stand and do the pledge.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Fulton.
Sir, probably about a year or so ago, we had some issues in the Sugar Mill subdivision where there were lots, part of the subdivision that were not included in the non-discharge areas. So after the discharge map was updated to reflect those areas, we looked at other areas on the map to make sure we didn't have any loose ends hanging out there in the same regard. So what I provided is a draft to kind of get the conversation started. There are 6 locations highlighted in squares on the larger map, and those locations, there's a zoomed in portion along the bottom of the map showing what has changed. The red parcels are the ones that have changed. Yellow is discharge permitted, green is non-discharge. So essentially what this is going by past practice and policy, that if you're in a platted subdivision or it's a park, then you're removed from the discharge area.
Thank you. I've taken a pretty good look at this. There is the one that I'm not sure about right now is location 4. Let's just talk about that one for a minute. That's owned by the Licking County Parks District. Is that correct? That one I don't know that I'm comfortable with changing, and I feel like that should be their call. And I have a little bit more history on that specific area, just growing up there and spending time back there as a kid and even as an adult, hunting and whatever. I just feel like that should be their call. This is just my own personal opinion. I'd like to hear what Mike and Todd have to say. The other 5 seem to be, unless I'm missing something, kind of no-brainers.
Mm-hmm.
But 4, I'm not comfortable with.
Okay, and that's totally fine. It was just due to the past policy that parks were taken out of the discharge area. We just wanted to present it as this is based upon past policy, but then it's open for whatever the committee would like to do.
Right. Mr. Barstow, Mr. Powell, do you guys have any input on that?
because it's owned by the park district. Does that automatically make it a park?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
And the way that the code is written, it just says the council has the ability to determine what's in a discharge zone and what's not, but it doesn't have any specifics on how that's determined. It's just by past policy. So since it came up as a park, just to highlight it, to see, that's just kind of why it was included, but
Right.
staff doesn't feel strongly one way or the other.
Well, I do feel strongly, because we've been down this road before with the Forest property, and so if was one thing that I learned is that from that experience is that it's the city's policy not to allow the property owner to determine whether or not they're going to be in the discharge zone or not be in the discharge zone, and as you may recall. Evangeline Forrest, who owned property up on Summit, she owned 100 acres or so. It was a good sized piece of property, and she had people coming out and hunting, and she had a lot of problems. And she was in the discharge zone, and she wanted to be taken out of the discharge zone. And we had a giant kerfluffle that extended over about a year or so, and so. This is, to me, it's the same principle. It's not the park district's call to be in the discharge zone. If the park district, it's the city's objective criteria to whether or not a parcel should be in or out of the zone. Now, if the park district, just as with Ms. Forrest, if they want to put up signs or permit hunting or whatever they want to do, it's their property. If they can do with it as they please, whether, Mr. Powell, whether or not it's being used as a park or not, if it's just some future development or however they came to own it through a donation or what have you, it would be their business to decide whether or not they're going to permit hunting on that property. So it's so. I don't think letting the property owner decide whether to be in or out is the proper approach. Should it be in or out, applying whatever the city's objective criteria are, and then it's up to the property owner to do as they please. So,
Good point.
I would not want to have to repeat. The principle is that if we left it up to property owners to be in the zone or not, we'd be a mini planning and zoning commission. We'd be people coming in, and it would be as new owners came in and people just whatever. It would become a problem. So that's if my question to Mr. Powell is applying the city's objective criteria that we apply to all the other parcels across the city. Should this parcel that's number 4 be in? What zone should it be in, discharge or non-discharge? That would be my question, and whatever the answer would be, then I would go along with that. So.
Makes sense. But just to kind of piggyback on that, I see that the well field there, the city property is right next to that.
Mm-hmm.
And this may be an easy answer. Why would that not be? I mean, if we're going to do it for the park, I'm not saying I would be for it or against it. I'm saying, where do we fall on that? Not knowing the history of what happened up on Summit Road, I wasn't here for that.
Same here. Basically, from what I've seen, past policy has been commercial areas, platted subdivisions, and parks. So that's
Are what? Excuse me. Are
removed from the discharge.
non-discharge? Okay.
So that was, we went through and saw some in some of the platted subdivisions, maybe a lot here or there that was left in the discharge zone, so clearly that was an error when the map was created. And then we came across this that's zoned by the parks, so we put that out there just not from an opinion from the planning and zoning department, but just that we found this, what do you want to do kind of thing.
So I guess did your department apply the same objective criteria to the number 4, the Mill Street property, as you did to every other property, the other 5 that are the subject of this map?
Yes.
Okay.
Because the other 5 are platted subdivisions, 4 owned by the Park District, and then we found no commercial properties that should have been.
And Mill Street isn't that isn't a platted subdivision.
No, that's owned by the Park District.
No, but it is it in a platted?
No.
It's not. Okay, that's because it was a park.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, there's nothing around it.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I
Closest
can only-
thing.
Yeah, I didn't think so, but I didn't think so, but I can.
Right.
So I just wanted to clarify that. Okay.
Mr. Powell?
I agree with Mr. Barstow that they shouldn't be allowed to decide, whether or not they want to be in discharge area. But if they want to, on their own, prevent anything from happening on their property, that's fine. But the other one's pretty clear cut. I'm not so sure that we should deal with location number 4.
That's where I'm at. And even if we come back to 4, I'd just like to get more info before. I mean, the other ones, I don't want to hold the other ones back because I'm not quite sure. I'd like to see that criteria, you know what I mean, and just kind of talk through it a little bit more before we move on
Honestly,
that.
there's no criteria.
Right.
In the code, it doesn't address if they're in based upon this, they're out based upon this. It just gives the council the ability to determine
Right.
what's in and what's out.
What I was saying is that they may not. It's not in the code. It's not in an ordinance. But if it's not written down somewhere, there is some sort of unwritten guidance that the planning department uses to put a property in or take a property out. Correct?
From what I gather, there was the criteria that you could see something that's typically across the board that in the past it's commercial, it's a platted subdivision, or a park is basically the pattern that we see in terms of those properties are removed from the discharge area.
School property.
Schools.
School property. So okay.
So, Scott, if we wanted to move forward, as long as Mr. Powell or Mr. Barstow doesn't have anything further, if we wanted to move forward in making these changes, excluding number 4, how would you recommend going about that?
If that, I think we could probably do a vote saying let's move forward with an ordinance removing location number 4, and then we would come back with the formalized ordinance, the updated map, and everything to take it through the process to make it official.
So amongst us, make a motion to recommend to council 1, 2, 3, 5, 6.
I think if you just maybe a vote to direct the planning and zoning department to update the
Okay.
map, then we
Yeah.
can bring that ordinance to council as a whole and move it forward like we would a normal ordinance.
Okay.
Great.
Mr. King, do you have anything to add?
No, I agree with that. That's what I was going to share is that, looking for recommendation from the committee to go ahead and propose the changes, removing number 4 as proposed, and then we'll get the legislation together to adopt.
Okay. So I'd like to make a go ahead, Todd.
Well, I mean, what are we going to do? I mean, what are we going to do with 4? I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, are we going to? I mean, here's the thing: if we call the park, let's say we call the park district and talk to them, they say no, we want to whatever. Then we've breached the floodgates are open, because then other property owners will say, I don't want to be in the discharge zone. I want to be out of the discharge zone. You let the park district's a property owner just like everybody else. I just don't want to. I mean, I appreciate Ms. Forrest. I've had conversations with her afterwards. It's very, very pleasant. It's fine, but I just don't want to have to go take up time going through that again.
Okay.
I think regardless of what the Parks Board says, or not Parks Board, the County Parks District says, the map's going to show one thing, but it's up to the County Parks District to determine what can happen on their property. We could say there could be, bulldozer races on there, but if they don't allow it, they don't allow it. So I think, regardless of what the map says, I think it comes down to, well, it's like a personal property. If you don't want people hunting on it, they don't hunt on it. Map may say one thing, but it's up to whoever owns it to allow whatever they want to have occur on there.
Oh, I agree, and that was the debate with the forest property. Mrs. Forrest is very upset because she felt that the signage that she was putting up, et cetera, wasn't being effective in keeping hunters off her property. But anyway,
Well, I can't argue that even being out of the discharge would keep it effective.
no, I'm again. It's their property. They can have hunters on there if they want.
Yep.
They can not have hunters on there if they want. The principle that I'm concerned with is that if 4 should be in the non-discharge zone because of objective criteria that's applied across the city, then it should be in the non-discharge zone. Even if the Parks Board says we want hunting, whatever on our property, or we want to have a firing range on our property. I don't know, whatever they want to do. That's. But if we, anyway, I just don't want to go through the forest kerfluffle again.
Well, I see what you're saying, Mr. Barstow. I think you raised some very good points. I don't, and I'd like to know your opinion on this, Scott. Do you see any reason to get this done right away, or could we take a little bit more time and discuss this a little bit more?
We could discuss it more. I mean, it's owned by the park district, but it's not an active park.
Right.
Like, you can't go there and basketball hoops or a swing set or anything like traditionally what we've done with the park.
Right. And my only thought was to, throwing the motion out there was just to go ahead and get 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 done, and then revisit 4. I wasn't saying no to it, or I'd just like to. I'm with you. I'd like to get a little bit more information.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I may not have explained myself. Okay. Like anything?
Nope,
Gotta get
I
going.
agree.
Okay. So I'd like to accept a motion to have planning and zoning create a discharge map with items 1, 2, 3, 5 and 6.
So moved. Second.
Ready for roll?
Yes, please.
Barstow?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
A motion to adjourn in a second.
Barstow?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Meeting adjourned.
Adjourn. Hit the thing.
Okay, council meeting in about 30 seconds, so prepare yourselves, please.